Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic, all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. Our hearts and our prayers go out to the people in Hawaii with the terrible fires that are there and the dreadful loss of life, and hopefully they're not going to find any more bodies. I know there's still a huge amount of people missing, and look, there's no words can explain what the families are going through and the people that live there and the people that are waiting for news on their loved ones, and just to make sure that they're safe. I mean, we can rebuild houses, we can rebuild lives, but we can't replace a life. So I really do feel for those people. I do know what it's like to live in a bushfire area. We have them here frequently in Australia, and I grew up with them side by side as a child, and it's a terrifying thing. And there's no words that can describe the pain that those people are going through, and they have to remain in our hearts and our prayers this week. So this week, the Simply Tarot card of the week is not necessarily one of my favourite cards, and it's one of the cards that when I used to do a lot of teaching, the students used to sort of go, oh, no, not this one. I don't like this one. But, you know, there's always a reason why we have to have balance in our life. We can't always have everything amazing and everything good unless we have something that's maybe not quite so good or a little bit on the negative side or challenging us in some way, because that's what makes us appreciate the good times. So the Simply Tarot card of the week this week is the Three of Swords. Now, when you look at it, it is three swords going through a heart. So it can be, the card can mean deception, frustration, or jealousy. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that every time that this card comes out in a reading, or the card of the week as it is this week, does it mean that we're going to be deceived. It just means keep your eyes and your ears open. Make sure that you're not deceiving yourself or being deceived by someone else. Is everybody around you that's communicating with you or meetings that you're going into, are they telling you the truth? Make sure that you're not the one being deceptive, that you're not misleading somebody or telling somebody what they want to hear, because it's easier than confronting the situation and telling them the truth. So sometimes that's where deception comes in. We do things because we don't want to hurt someone else's feelings, but in the long run, we're actually deceiving them, and that's not a good situation. For most of us, I think we can relate to the message of frustration. I know that, you know, I have frustration from time to time in my life when things don't go according to plan or don't move fast enough, or people just plain downright annoy me. And, you know, we can all have frustration in our lives from time to time. Jealousy is another one of those very sort of ambiguous words. I mean, everybody has their take on what it means to be jealous. Look, we can all look at somebody else's life and say, gee, I wish I had that. Or wouldn't it be nice to have that? Or aren't they lucky that they've got that in their lives? That doesn't necessarily constitute jealousy to me. Jealousy is a destructive emotion. It's when we start to turn nasty. It's when we start to really sort of try and dominate or control somebody, that we're incredibly jealous. We don't allow somebody to be themselves. We don't allow a partner to talk to people or have a life or go to the mailbox by themselves. That's the sort of jealousy we're talking about here. We're not talking about a little bit of the green-eyed monster where we all look at somebody else's dinner and say, gee, that'd be nice. I wish I'd had that instead of what I had. That's just normal part of being a human being. But jealousy is a very destructive emotion that, you know, hopefully not very many people have to experience in their lifetime, but there is some people that's the only emotion that they understand. They sort of mistake jealousy for love and many other emotions, and it's something that runs very deep in their veins. So hopefully you're not going to come across jealousy this week. Hopefully we're just going to come across a little bit of frustration, and maybe it might be the cell phone doesn't ring often enough, or it rings too often. Maybe that's what your week's going to be about. So this week we still have a very major influence in Leo in the astrological section. So what I'm about to talk about next is what's actually sitting in Leo. Now, this will really relate to Leos, obviously, Sagittarius, Aries, and Libra. But I'm going to say to you, it spills over to the other remaining 8 signs as well, but it's a lot more watered down or a lot less to contend with than the 4 signs that I mentioned. So the moon, the emotional planet, is sitting in Leo at the moment. So it's conjunct or holding hands Venus. So the moon we know is emotions. Emotions up or down can be good or bad. We can be sort of, you know, really, we are emotional beings. That's what we are here on earth. We're emotional beings, and we are governed by the moon. And sometimes we feel like we're in a good mood, and sometimes we're in a not so good mood. So the moon is responsible for that. The moon moves through a sign every 2.5 days. So luckily it doesn't sit there for very long. And we can come out of our horrible moods quite quickly, or our down moods a lot quicker. And also, by the same token, we're not in a very high moods of feeling really excited and over the top for too long either. We need a balance in our lives. So the moon is conjunct or holding hands Venus. Venus is the planet of love and affection. Now, Venus at the moment is seen to be going retrograde or backwards. What that means is any things connected to Venus at the moment could sort of seem a little bit off. Might seem as if there's, has to be an emotional issue that you need to discuss with a loved one. Just be very careful at how you do it, because they may not really be focused on what you're trying to share with them. Their emotions may be sort of getting a better of them. It may be a very emotionally charged situation. For some people, the emotionally charged situation will be absolutely fantastic, and it'll be something that's off the charts in a very, very positive way, and something that you're very, very excited about. And for other people, it's going to be the exact opposite. So there's no way of defining for each particular situation who's going to experience what. Now, Venus is retrograde, so that means that we have to take a little bit more care on how we handle things that are connected to loving situations. Now, that's the people that we love in our lives, the people that we are closest to, that we share a loving connection or a bond with. Now, Venus is also conjunct the sun, which is where the sun is for the next few days, up to about, no, we've got about less than a week. We've got about 4 or 5 days for the Leo energy to continue, and then it moves into Virgo. So Venus is retrograde still, is conjunct or holding hands the sun. So the sun is trying to sort of brighten everything up, trying to throw a really positive spin on everything, and sort of saying, well, okay, even though things may not look bright and positive at the moment, let's look beyond this. Let's look at the lessons that we're learning here. What was the emphasis on what we had to learn while this conjunction is actually happening? And it's a major conjunction because we've got 3 planets, and then we've got 1 Arabian part. Now, 3 planets together is called a stellium, meaning 3. And when we've got the Arabian part added to it, it's not a planet, but it's also acting as a very intense energy as well. So the sun is actually conjunct the part of fortune. Now, the Arabian part of fortune doesn't mean where we're going to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow with the leprechaun. It just means that it's bringing our lives into an area that is more stable, that it's our part of fortune. It's where we can feel most fortunate in ourselves. So even though the beginning of this part of the astrology that I mentioned is emotional, it's connected to the things that, or the people that we love the most, which may not be going quite the way that we want it to. It is conjunct or holding hands the sun, so there is a radiating of energy there and an outpouring of sort of trying to make everything right. And it's sort of like whatever's happening at the moment, whether it's good or it's bad, or it's somewhere in between, just know that it's your part of fortune trying to get you on the right track. It's asking you to really sort of focus on what is actually happening at the moment. If you've been doing everything right, then this will be an easy peasy, lovely sort of configuration that's happening of transits in the chart at the moment for you, and things will start to flow really well. If you've done something wrong, or you've been avoiding something or ignoring something, or life's caught up with you in some sort of way because of something of past actions, now will not necessarily be an easy time, or as you're looking at it. But bear in mind, this will be life-changing. This will be something that will set a benchmark for the rest of your life. So nothing that ever happens to us, even if it's not pleasant, is not for the right reasons. It's teaching us something. We're learning some very, very valuable lessons here. So it's something that we all needed to do. Now, before I finish off with what we're doing with Leo, I want to talk about, there's another aspect, another transit that's happening with the Leo energy, and that's called a trine. Now, what that means, it's approximately 120 degrees or 4 signs away, making another aspect to all the Leo stuff, and this is Chiron. Now, Chiron is the planet of the wounded healer. So Chiron is currently sitting in Aries, but making a lovely trine back to all the Leo stuff that I've mentioned previously. Now, Chiron's role here is to sort of really make us sort of look at where we are hurt, what other things that need to be repaired in us, what other things that we need to fix. Now, the fact that it's a trine energy means it's flowing, it's positive, it's nice. So Chiron here is assisting everything that I've just spoken about in Leo. It's assisting with the healing. It's assisting with opening our eyes, showing us the way forward, helping us make the best possible decisions or choices that we can make under the circumstances, and helping us move this energy on. Even if everything seems negative and things seem to be going backwards in your life, it is showing you that there is a way out. You can turn this around. If you really just look at it in a very logical, practical sort of self, you'll find the solutions, and things don't need to be that difficult. So it's a good situation. We have Mercury, the planet of communication, is sitting in Virgo at the moment and is conjunct or holding hands Mars. Now, when we have a situation like this with Mercury, the planet of communication, Mercury is asking us to be very definite, very clear, very precise, very sure about what it is that we want. Now, conjunct or holding hands with Mars is sort of saying, be very, very careful that you're not getting too aggressive, that you're not coming in like the bull in the china shop and lording it over everybody and saying, this is the only way, that this is the only way we can deliver a message, or I'm always right and you're wrong, and stop being so bossy. Come in on maybe a more gentle approach, because sometimes the Virgo energy can be very matter of fact and almost seem like it's cold. And it's not necessarily meaning to be that way. It's just trying to be very precise and very concise with the information that's being shared. And it's sort of saying, these are the facts, and there's no sort of emotion attached to it. So maybe sometimes we've got to put a little bit of warmth in there. But it's the perfect time if you need to have some serious conversations with, whether it's a loved one, whether it's an employee, a friend, just, generally want to have a decent conversation with somebody, or you need to have a decent conversation with somebody, or you're going for a loan, or whatever the case may be. Make sure that you present the facts very clearly and very concisely, and do it in a very dignified sort of manner, and you'll get better results that way. It's maybe not the best time to have that romantic conversation if you've had a few issues in your relationship, because maybe there'll be no warmth or feeling there. The other person will take it that you're not really serious, or you want to end things. So be very aware if you've got to have that sort of conversation. We still have Saturn sitting in Pisces, and Saturn is, enjoying a run in Pisces. It's only just moved in there, so he's still got about 9-10 months to go. So Saturn is trying to stabilize things for all the Pisceans around the planet, and that flows over to Cancers and to Scorpios, of course, and also the opposite sign of Virgo. So you need to be sort of aware that there could be some situations sitting in your life at the moment that you feel very bogged down by, that you feel as if somebody's coming along and sort of trying to tell you to do something that you don't feel that you want to do, or feeling restrictions in your life at the moment. It's a time to work with the energy. Sometimes restrictions are in our lives for the right reasons, because we maybe didn't have enough discipline before in our lives, or maybe we didn't have the answers or the solutions to a problem. So Saturn here is showing us the pathway forward, and showing us from right from wrong. And I think that's the important thing here, is sometimes we get a little bit waylaid of what we think is right, which might be right for us, but might not necessarily be right in the bigger scheme of things or the complete picture. And sometimes we get a little bit lost in our own world of thinking, well, we're more entitled than someone else. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that the world is a big place, and we do need to learn to share. And not everything is always about me, 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 me. It's about, the bigger picture. We also have Neptune, the planet of illusion and delusion and creativity. And I like to look at Neptune as being more creative than anything. Is sitting in Pisces. So it's interesting that it's sitting in Pisces as, the world is sort of trying to struggle with writers' strikes and different world events. And, every time you turn the news on, it seems to be more negative. Somebody else has been arrested, or this has been happening, or we're trying to see more transparency in things in governments and political leaders and people that we used to look up to once. And it's sort of like, can we believe everything that we're hearing and seeing in the media? Probably not. But, you'll find your own truth in the middle of that. And hopefully out of all this, we're going to get a lot more creativity. I'd like to see more songwriters come forward and come out with some brilliant new tunes that we could all jive along to. Would be good. That would be how I would like to see Neptune play out here, not so much with, another set of headlines with another person that's in trouble, that's fallen from grace. Let's swing it back around, and let's get some creativity, get some people that producing some really great films, or people writing beautiful songs, or painting beautiful pictures. Let's get some creativity happening. Pluto is still sitting in Capricorn, will be there till the end of the year, the early part of 2024, where he will finally finish his reign in Capricorn and then move into Aquarius. So this is why we're seeing such a push to the the finish line with world events and things coming out into the open, things that have been hidden from us as we try and straighten out governments and sort out things like global warming and things like that, that people still are denying the fact that it's happening, even though we've got terrible fires and flood events and everything around the world. People still get on their high horse and say that it's all imaginitis. Well, I wish they'd really take a little bit more notice. Yes, it might be a once in 100-year flood or a once in 100-year fire, but why are these things happening nearly every week? They're not just once in 100 years that we have a particular event. These are weeks. Every week there seems to be another event. So we've got to start taking a little bit more notice of that. So that's where we're going to leave the astrology section for this week. I hope that it's helped you in some small way. So we're going to talk with Tina in Bel Air in Maryland. Are you there, Tina?
I am. Hello.
Hi, Tina. Do you have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
I guess my question would just be, I have a lot going on in my life right now, and if you could just maybe give me some insight, or, are things going to be okay?
Okay.
Something like that.
That's a really good question, Tina, when you're going through so much. I mean, the first thing that you want to know is, can I draw my breath, and am I going to be okay? And then sort of let's try and look at situations in sort of like layers on a chocolate cake, and let's just peel back one layer at a time and try and do the very best that we can do. The first thing that they were sharing with me from the other side, Tina, is the fact that you are ready for the challenges that are being presented. So even though you might feel sort of tired and fatigued and think, gee, I just want to come out the other side, they're showing me that it's not over yet, but you are in a position of power where you are taking it in your stride, and that's good. The first thing I want to say to you is there a change of job coming up? Because that's the first thing that they're sharing with me was question marks around work and money.
Yes, I start a new job tomorrow.
Oh, good. Because I feel quite excited about that. I don't feel uncomfortable with that. I feel that that's a good move. It feels like, to me, the right thing. So, yes, it's going to take a little bit of time to settle in because it's a new job, but it looks to me to be the right thing, and that's good. Out of this, I think, is going to come other changes behind it. And it's not because you've changed your job. It's like other areas of your life are changing as well at the same sort of time. I'm not seeing a move of residence. So that's a good thing. I think we can sort of settle you into that. That's where you're meant to be living for now anyway. And there doesn't need to be a change there. But has there been some changes around the family, with not everybody seeing things your way anymore? It's sort of like, I almost want to sort of say that everybody's sort of looking at things maybe through their own selfish eyes and not considering what you need. Is that how you've been finding the last few months?
Yes, more or less. Yes.
Yeah,
more or less. I mean, I was also very selfish at a time. So, it's just, I think everybody's just seeing things. I think that's reality has hit a lot of us, and it's just a tough time right now for my husband and I, and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, I can understand that, Tina, but I don't want to say that you've necessarily been selfish. You might have been a little bit self-absorbed, or maybe a little bit more focused on me. But sometimes, Tina, we have to be that to be able to then go and help someone else. Do you know what I mean? We have to understand it from our point of view, from the me point of view, before I can look at you. So don't be too hard on yourself with that. I mean, as far as the difficulties and the challenges that are sitting there between you and your husband at the moment, that I think will soon pass too. I think he's had his own challenges, things that he's had to sort through and work through. And one of those has been whether or not he's in the right job, and, is it the time to change, or should I stay put, and all those sort of things. I'm not necessarily seeing a job change for him at the moment, but what I am seeing is some change of duties in the current job that he's in now, which I think will settle him down a little bit more, and he'll feel a little bit more in control again. There's been sort of like, it's been a peculiar 18 months in his job. And, part of that we might have been able to blame on COVID, but I don't think we can blame everything on COVID. I think the world has been shifting. Regardless of whether we went through COVID or not, I think there would have been changes we all had to experience anyway. But things are certainly, from the end of this month onwards, Tina, things are going to slowly start to get better. And, you won't wake up one day and say, wow, the world's great again. You'll just slowly notice that things are getting a slightly little bit easier, and you can put your energies into some new projects, and that's a good thing. And, look, if there's been friendships that have ended in this last 6 to 12 months, just sort of don't look at that as a sadness thing. Look at it as a positive celebration to say, well, okay, we've all moved on from each other. We all gained what we needed to gain out of that friendship, that situation, and now we've all been set free. Look at it in a positive. Stop looking at things in such a negative, and I think you'll find things will get a lot better, Tina, but you're going into a much, much better cycle, so just keep positive and keep strong. It's been lovely to talk with you, Tina. We're going to talk with Christy now in Atlanta, Georgia. Are you there, Christy?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have a question, Christy?
I don't think so, not necessarily. It's just kind of like a general, I guess.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to sort of look at it in a general sort of fashion. The first thing that they're showing me is that there is endings, changes, or transformations coming up. So obviously this year hasn't been as easy for you as what you were hoping. It is a difficult time when you sort of feel as if your life should be moving forward, and all of a sudden things aren't moving forward as well as what you'd like to see them. It's like there's a little bit of turbulence ahead, and then once we get through that turbulent period, then things become a lot easier than what they were, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing that's actually sort of happening in the world at the moment. It's like, Christy's going through an adjustment period. Every now and then I think we go through periods of time in our lives where we need to reassess, we need to readjust, we need to realign what our goals are for the future. What is it that we're aiming for? What is it that we're searching for? What have we been working towards in our lives that has got us to this point? And sometimes we can't see what it is that's ahead of us because we're still in the thick of the now. We're not necessarily out of the past either. We're still with the past. We're looking at the now, but we can't see too much further in front of us. It's like a thick fog, and we can't see through the fog. And until we feel that we can see through the fog, we can't make any long-range plans of what's the next step that's ahead of us. And that's where I think Christy is at the moment, is that she sort of feels as if she's caught in the now. She's trying not to look back to the past too much because it's too painful and it's not where she wants to be, yet she's not seeing anything terrific to sort of hang on to for the future or to work towards. So it's making it incredibly difficult to understand what it is that's coming up next. So I want to just sort of say to you, Christy, that you need to just relax, go with the energy. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you don't feel like doing anything today, just do what you absolutely have to. Just do the bare essentials and allow yourself that time to sit down and to have a rest, to daydream, to, sit there and gaze out the window. It's okay. It's not a waste of time. Sometimes we need to allow our bodies to do that and our minds to just wander, because that's part of what's actually sort of happening as well. So if you can look at that and not be too hard on yourself, I think you'll slowly start to see from September onwards, which is only weeks away now, the clearing in the fog. Things will start to become a lot clearer. You will start to see the direction that you're going, and you'll start to be able to make some longer range plans. And moving into 2024, you'll start to feel as if everything's sort of starting to open up and move forward. And it's like, I'm starting to see the little seeds are popping up from the earth, and they're starting to get shoots, and they're starting to get bigger. I'm seeing things growing. It's interesting because they keep showing me that there's been some tears that have been sort of just sitting at the back of your eyes. It's like you're not allowing yourself to let go of that emotion. And I can appreciate that, and I can understand that. Sometimes people say to me, if I start crying, I'll never stop. And I can relate to that, and I can understand that. But sometimes I think it is important to release those emotions, even if we don't know that we can control them. If they're there for a reason, and they're meant to be released. They're not there for no reason. And a lot of people sort of think it's a sign of weakness to show some sort of emotion or to burst into tears or to whatever. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Because if you're allowing yourself to function with your emotions as natural as it is to breathe, then you're allowing everything to be in balance. And I think it's many times that we tend to try and hold things back because it's not an appropriate time, or I shouldn't be upset, or I shouldn't be this. So that's why we do the things that we do. Anyway, Christy, that's where we're going to leave it. I hope that that's helped you with the changes that are coming up, and you're certainly in the right place, doing the right thing, and that's what you need to be aware of. So this week I sort of struggled to think of a song that I thought that would be appropriate, and it was one of those times where normally something comes to me or the song hits me in the eyes during the week and I think, oh, that'll be great for the show. This week it was sort of like, quick, I have to go through my song list and see if something jumps out at me. And interestingly enough, the song that jumped out at me is one of my favourites. And it's by Gladys Knight and the Pips. And I think the song is actually appropriate because I picked the song before I drew the card of the week. And it's You and Me Against the World. And it's a beautiful old classic song. And I think only Gladys Knight can do it justice. I mean, many other people have tried, but I know that there's a few other people, and my producer would say, well, you know, Helen Reddy did a good version of this, and I agree with that too. But I think my ultimate favourite would have to be Gladys Knight, You and Me Against the World. And it was a big hit in the US. I'm sure it was for both of those ladies. And they're both extremely talented, and I have immense respect for both of them. They both have powerful voices. And sometimes I think I might have been an African American in my previous life, because I really do feel a connection to the Motown soul music. And it's just a beautiful song. So I'm going to leave you with You and Me Against the World. Whichever version tickles your fancy, put it on the turntable and enjoy. See you next week.